Welcome, CNG 212 500, the online session of Windows configuration or server configuration. This week we are jumping into looking at storage configuration, um, working with disk management. This is probably one of the chapters where you'll get the most um, valued information. Um, creating creating backups, expanding volumes. Um, this is where you're going to get a lot of the stuff that you're more likely to use on I wouldn't say average basis because it's not really average basis. You're most likely to run into using in your server careers because it's always dealing with storage, trying to find storage, trying to configure storage. You know, what do you use? Do you use a mirrored system? Do you use a RAID system? Do you use a mirrored RAID system? So we're talking about mixing different types of RAIDs together. Um, so this is probably going to be one of your most valued chapters to look at as you start reading through this week's content. A lot of questions, and this kind of goes into um, what I'm usually asked throughout the semester is, and I get posed the question almost every semester, do we have to know all of this? Um, it is good that you retain some of it. Um, it's impossible for me to teach you all in one course. We get a good idea of what's going to happen in configuring a Windows server, but we do not touch on all of it. That could take really memorizing it and learning it could take years for every little aspect of a server. But if you're exposed to it and you get used to the Windows environment, um, then you have a better idea of where to find specific things. You know, features of servers probably one of the biggest things to get used to. Adding features. Um, Once you get that down, it makes higher classes easier for you. And I'm talking about like 213, 214, 256 enterprise security. Those courses get a lot easier when you're more comfortable in a Windows Server environment, and I should say even in a Linux environment. We have 201, 202, 203, which you're basically learning the Linux environment. So once you become adept in both Windows and Linux, you pretty much have a solid foundation built up underneath you that you're good to go. It's not going to teach you everything for your next job because it's impossible to know what your next job is, but it's going to give you that foundation where you feel comfortable enough going into this workplace and saying, yeah, I have server experience. And this is kind of what relates to our work later on. As you see when we get to 13, 14, and 15, we're going to be working on a project. We'll also develop a portfolio. So if you can say, you know what, during my time when I took this course at Front Range, I implemented and configured a server, and this is what I did within the server. Maybe you say, maybe you really like this configuring storage unit and decide to um, make your portfolio project about, you know what, this is how I did disk volumes, this is how I did shares, this is how I did network shares. Um, Network shares are a huge thing in servers. I currently don't have a virtual machine of a server, but I'll see if I have an old one I can dig up. Um, but really, you're just, you know, that's all it is when people talk about server, it's usually accessing, we haven't got there yet, but accessing the domain controller and looking at users, computers, um, but we haven't got there yet. Uh, we're still kind of in our infancy um, in this course. So let's see. Good work so far. Once again, these lab simulations do take a longer amount of time, so do take care. Do take due care when doing these. Make sure to give yourself at least an hour of sit down time ready to go. Or maybe, no, I'm sorry, I meant lab. Um, the lab environments do take a longer time to do, so make sure you give yourself time on that. One change came in week 6. Week 6, I also threw in the DHCP from the other book, just so you guys have a little bit more coverage of that. DHCP, an important scope of running a server. It basically makes sure that signs that your IPs are going out properly. So when we get to week 6, we'll have just a little bit more homework, but then we'll dive into another book, just so you have a good DHCP grasp. And once again, we look at 2 other topics in week 6, installing Hyper-V and configuring DHCP. Maybe you put your portfolio project on that. So as you go through these weeks, make sure to assess, hey, did I really like this? Is this something I want to research just a little bit more and do my 3-week project on? You keep that in the back of your head. Once again, if you have any questions, most of you already figured out the fastest way to get a hold of me is through the Google Hangouts. Simply by joining and asking a question. Since you guys are more likely in your 3rd semester, around your 3rd semester, yeah, 3rd semester, 2nd semester, you'll probably be able to answer some of the questions that the 100 level students are asking. Feel free to chime in. Once again, that Google Hangout is just for everybody, and that's the fastest way to get a hold of me, just by sending or asking a question in there. Besides that, everyone's doing good. If you have any questions, reach out to me, and I will do my best to answer them. Make sure you have your Kaplan code, and you're accessing your Kaplan. Start rehearsing now. I use Kaplan to boost test scores. In this class, we just have a midterm and a final. So perhaps if you don't do so well on this, you really want to focus on doing your Kaplan. A 70 or better will boost those test scores. And that's all I got for today. You guys have a good week. Stay strong. We're only in week 4. We got 11 more weeks to go. And have a good start.